All right. Hello, YouTube, and welcome back. So, in this edition of Nursing Dynamics, we are going to talk about show me the money. People always want to know how they can make money and how they can get to that bag in nursing. People think nurses are balling out the atmosphere, but we're here to give you a more mature and realistic perspective on earning income in nursing as it relates to things such as sign on bonuses and contracts that claim to pay a significant amount more than what you may be making otherwise. So let's get into it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start on sign-on bonuses because this is something that is not a new concept. Sign-on bonuses have been around for such a long time. I've been a nurse for almost 18, or actually for 18 years, and I think my second job offered a sign-on bonus. And back then, this is back in 2000, let's say 5 or 6, that it was a $4,000 sign-on bonus. And back then, that was money. That was a lot of money back then. And I took it and I regretted it. I will have to say, any job, and this is true outside of nursing, I've seen this even at Captain D's, that they had a sign-on bonus at a local restaurant. Any job that already pays you a salary or a wage in the first place, who has to further bribe you, and it is a bribe, to come in and work for that facility for X amount of money, is doing so because they are desperate. When you have desperation, that means we have internal issues going on at this facility. And that may mean we can't keep staff. That's obviously what it means. It's because of the fact that, we have to give you an extra incentive to come in and work. Now, if we can't keep staff, then that is a problem within itself. Your turnover rate is where every year you're losing, several hundred employees in terms of employees in general, not just nurses, then we have an internal issue going on with why is that we cannot retain, we cannot attract, what's the word when you're trying to recruit? That's the word I'm saying. When you can't recruit and retain nurses or whatever other areas of the hospital staff that you happen to need, and they offer these sign-on bonuses, it is a red flag. It is a huge red flag. I truly want you to really think about, if the higher the bonus, the bigger the problems. And how they trap you is you start saying, okay, oh, you know what? I'm a new grad. That $25,000 sign-on bonus, I can go ahead and move and get set up, and then I'm gonna be a nurse and da 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 da. It sounds wonderful. 25K, that's gonna be taxed, by the way, but $25,000 extra money for you to work in this facility. Hey, I'm gonna be working there anyway, so why not? I plan to stay there for so many years. Keep in mind, most, if not all, and I want to say all, but I can't say anything in totality because I honestly don't know. But I'm gonna say most sign-on bonuses require a contractual agreement to say, I'm going to stay at this facility for so many years. I've seen everything from 1 year to 8 years. And I always say that if you're going to do this, you're literally selling your soul to the devil. And it sounds kind of harsh, but that's the truth. You're selling your soul to the devil because you're already paying me my salary, my wage, whatever. You pay me my so many thousands per year. And then you're going to give me this extra money to come in and work for you all. It's a setup. It's a complete setup. So if you plan on taking said money, and I will tell you, the more the bonus, typically the worse the situation happens to be. Think about it. If I'm going to sit there and pay, we're going to use 25,000 as an even number. If I'm going to say I'm going to pay out $25,000 as a sign-on bonus for a stipulation of working at this facility for 5 years, they're not just offering it to you. So let's just say 4 nurses, right? 25 times 4 is 100. In this case, 100,000. They're paying $100,000 for 4 nurses to stay, so work and stay. The problem with that is how much money they spending out to get you to come there. And let's just say it's 4 nurses for that one unit. We're talking about a whole hospital here. The average hospital can have upwards in a small 100 to 400 nurses. So what if they're recruiting, all the new grads coming in or people who are coming in on sign-on bonuses? It is a trap. It is a trap. So what I recommend you do if you are trying to think about getting a sign-on bonus is if you're going to, I wouldn't take it to begin with. I just wouldn't take it. It's the trap. But if you're going to take the money and put it up. Don't spend it. Don't spend it. Because what's going to end up happening is when you soon discover as the reason as to why they offer the sign-on bonus, which will probably take you all of 3 weeks to a month. You will be maybe about a month and a half. I say that because you spend usually the first week or so in hospital orientation. Then you get on the floor, because in hospital orientation, they paint this picture to be like the front part of Disney, where Cinderella's castle is. It's beautiful. They paint it to be so beautiful. And then when you get to the back of the park, it's Six Flags in the back. And you get to realize that, wait a minute, this is not what they said to begin with. And you realize that, oh, the staff is not as nice as I thought. Oh, and then they tell you that you only had a 1-to-6 ratio, but that's very seldom. You actually have a 1-to-8 ratio more majority of the time. And the nurses are bullying. And I can go on and on and on about the issues that we have in nursing that is no need to discuss here. But those are the issues as to why they need the sign-on bonus, because that's where you want people leaving. So if you're going to take it, pocket the money, put it up somewhere, and be ready to pay it back so that you don't have the mental health and physical health issues that you will probably get if you stayed at this facility for the sake of a contract, for the sake of a sign-on bonus. They are of the devil, and it's truly a red flag. Truly a red flag. I don't think I've met maybe 2 nurses who took the sign-on bonus and said that they tolerated it and did fine and finished their requirements and actually stayed after they finished the requirements. Some people can muster it up and say, okay, well, I can do a year. I can do a year and whatever and get through it. But majority of people either pay it back, quit, they do something, or they suffer. They really suffer by the end of the term that they have really, they leave at the end of the term. So it's not a good thing. So all you new nurses, sign-on bonuses are bad. What's your take on some sign-on bonuses?
Doc, I have to agree with you. Sign-on bonuses. I took one when I was a baby nurse. I didn't know any better because I didn't have nursing dynamics teaching me. And it was $5,000 for 1 year, and then you could renew for another year for another 5. And when I tell you, I literally made it to like not exaggerating, a year and a day. That day was my last day, literally. So my last 2 weeks of working, because I gave a 2 weeks notice, I was heading out. I couldn't take it another minute. And this was early 2000s as well. And I said, oh, I can pay some bills, get rid of some debt or whatever with the money, and the typical things most people probably think about. And the mental and emotional stress that place put me through, I would have loved to have left sooner and kept that piece of me that is now gone. So I warn people about it, and I say, hey, if you're going to do it, people are going to do what they're going to do. Right. My thing is just be smart about it. And I get a lot of feedback from students that say, what happens if I break the contract? Well, you should be telling me because you should have read it.
Right. Right.
So you should be telling me what will happen. Like, I don't know what your contract says. I know what my contract said when I did one. But again, I didn't have nursing dynamics to tell me any better. So with that said, if you're going to do it, that's fine. If it works out for you, great. A lot of times it doesn't, though. And I don't have the numbers on how often it does versus does not, but just based on experience talking to thousands of nurses at this point, the majority of the time it doesn't work out. I would definitely say proceed with caution and understand the terms of your contract. You should be reading every line. Don't just let the recruiter or the HR person or whoever that slide the contract across the table, and I'm saying that figuratively, maybe it's on the computer, whatever, whoever hands you the contract, don't think that they're just going to tell you what's in it. You need to read it. Remember this about contracts, and no, I'm not an attorney. I've worked with contracts in other fields. And one thing is for sure, if you don't write the contract, you or your attorney does not have a say in the way the contract is written, that contract is written for the other party. And that's just in general, you're talking about housing, you're talking about a job, you're talking about whatever. If I write a contract, it's going to benefit me the most. And that's not to say that you're going to completely dog out the other person, but you're going to protect your interests first. And then maybe you slide something in for the other person, but you can't expect for it to be fair is what I'm trying to get at. So when you read it and read word for word, read the fine print, put your glasses on, whatever you got to do. And if you don't like those terms, don't sign it. Don't go somewhere else. And I know a lot of places are offering these things. Another thing, like what Doc said, is if you decide to move forward, take the money and put it up. And you know what? If you're not going to do that, you're going to go out and do whatever with the money. Just know if the time comes where either you have to quit or sometimes terminate it, you may have to pay that money back. So you need a plan in place for that, whatever that looks like for you. I've seen people default on these contracts either again because they quit or was terminated. Is also considered a default in a lot of these contracts, and they have to pay it back with interest. I've seen nurses have their wages garnished because of it. So understand what you're signing. So I shouldn't get any more calls or texts saying, Dr. Ray, what should I do about this contract? I don't know, you should be telling me what you should do because I didn't read your contract. You should know what the terms are of the contract that you sign. And they're all different. So, something that I may have seen could be completely different to your scenario. And always have an exit strategy. I can't say that enough in this profession. This is a profession, for those who don't know, that has very high turnover. There's no shortage of nursing. There's a high turnover of nurses. So keep that in mind. And there's a saying that my mother used to say, everybody ain't lying. That's what she used to say. And that means that if you hear thousands of people saying the exact same thing, just put your ear to the ground. It is not about whether or not you agree. When you talk about something like turnover, because that's factual, those are numbers. Okay, we're not talking about opinions. That's not what this is. We're talking about when you talk about something where you have some objective data, everybody not lying. You see all these places with these sign-on bonuses and contracts and things. They're not giving away the money because they think nurses are cute. They're giving it away because they're begging you, or as Doc said, bribing you to come and work because no one else wants to work there. Because you best believe it's somewhere that's so great to work. They're not offering bonuses and bribes to get people in the door. They don't have to. If they had a line of people waiting to get in, they don't have to bribe. And in fact, the price goes up when you got a line of people. Right. So, and when I say the price, I don't mean your terms. Unless I mean your salary. In this instance, I mean maybe they make you pay for parking or something. Like they'll start taxing you in another way. That's how business works. Supply and demand always win. So that's another story. So back to this. Also remember that when you see these contracts, because now the whole thing is travel nurses, it's so glamorized now. When you see these contracts for 13 weeks, $1 million, or whatever it says, understand the higher the number, the worse the conditions are. Trust me. The more money they're offering, the worse it is. And also remember, with nursing, you have a license to also protect. So yes, you go there, you take care of your patients, do whatever you have to do. But when you are put in situations where your license is now at risk, I don't care what that number says, you might not even be around to collect it all. So you have to keep that in mind too. The more money they are offering, it's not because they're generous, it's because they're desperate. And desperation, I'll speak for myself, desperation and my license don't go together. So I'll just go somewhere else, pick another place. So just keep that in mind. The more money they're offering, the worse it is. Trust me.
So when you were talking about the contract, so like take the sign-on bonuses out of it, and we're talking about the contracts that are so attractive to if travel, or even local travel, where you're staying put, but it's your city, your town, your whatever, but it's like, okay, they are in essence the exact same thing, except for the fact that one is a 13-week contract for, like you said, $1 million, but you gonna be the only nurse on the floor. You're taking the whole floor,
you might be the only nurse in the hospital.
So so that's when I always say your license or your job, which is more important, because you could, if you lose your license, you delegated to rotating cans at Walmart. That's about all you're gonna be able to do. And even then they're gonna question, okay, what did you do to lose your nursing license? What did you do? They're gonna question that. Like, I mean, you can't say you've been a nurse for 5 years and have a big old gap and not mention it, and have a big old gap in your work history. Like, what you been doing for 5 years? Oh, well, I was a nurse. Don't nobody go from wanting to be a nurse, go rotating cans at Walmart. Don't nobody, if you was retirement age and you say, okay, I really want to work still, and the nursing is not it no more, You 65 years old, just want a job to do, that's something different. But when you're in your prime 20s, 30s, and 40s, even 50s, we not typically, even with our poor salary, to keep this in mind, even with our poor salary as nurses, registered nurses, we typically ain't going from 25 to 30 or 20 to 30 per hour down to 10 to 15, depending on what city, where you're working at. We're not going to purposely do that. Now, some people are the exception, like, okay, for mental health reasons, I want to do that. Cool. But most of us are not doing that. So nothing is worth you losing your license for because of a dollar sign, because, they say money is the root of evil. And the way we function around here in the nursing world and some other occupations, we act like that too. And we do anything, they dangle that carrot in front of us. That's the money, the contracts, the whatever. They dangle that in front of us, and here we come. Yeah, we'll work 25 days in a row, 12-hour shifts. And I've seen people do that and end up in ICU themselves. I know a nurse that happened to him. He worked 21 days in a row, 12-hour shifts, and he ended up in ICU. It was, I don't know his situation. It wasn't ever due to a bonus, but I'm just simply saying, whether he worked multiple jobs, needed the money for his family, I don't know. I don't remember the reason why, but he had worked that many. Like, that's what they'll have you doing. Well, if you signed this contract saying you're willing to do this, that, and the other. So what do you advise people to do? People need money. New nurses, well, not new nurses, nurses need money. So we talked about holding on to the money, having an exit strategy, to recap. But what else do you recommend them do if they're wanting extra money?
Well, another thing you can do is, and of course, this is, I know it always depends, right? But I'm just going to just throw out some ideas. If you are an experienced nurse, you can always do agency or float pool or something else, PRN. You can always pick up, it's always something around to earn extra money, because somebody always needs a nurse because, again, of the high turnover.
Right.
Now, if you're a newer nurse and you kind of feel like, because of course, we are recording this in the United States, which is a very capitalistic society, and most of our audience are US based. So you already know how it goes here. Everything is all about money and just trying to stay afloat. So I understand that's very important. And generally speaking, nurses don't make great money, especially when you consider what we have to do to earn said income. So I would just say to have a plan, and also understand. I would paint a worst case scenario and say, okay, if this happens and I'm in this contract under these terms, what recourse will I have, and how am I going to process this? So just understand, so that if it happens where you get there and they, insisting you take an unsafe assignment, or you've been bullied to the point where you are having some sort of mental breakdown, because I've seen that as well, or just any number of just things that I feel like you can't deal with. You have anxiety every day, you get a pit in your stomach every time you think about it. It's just not working for whatever reason. Just have a plan in place to say, this is how I'm going to deal with it. And whatever that looks like for you, if that means your wages are garnished, but you're okay with that, then so be it.
You said your wages are garnished?
Yeah, because
okay.
Some of those contracts say that if you default, whether you quit or get fired, now if you pass away, that's different, but quit or get fired, they will garnish your wages. You can get on a payment plan with them. If you default, then they'll garnish your wages. So I always look at things, and I do this when I make big decisions. I look at worst possible case scenarios and say, okay, if this happens, what would I do? And how would I process the end result? And that's really what it's about, because at the end of the day, you have to live with your decisions. So, we're giving you advice based on our experiences and what we have known happen to other nurses, because we've been doing this a while, but really it's about how you live your life. So if you're willing to live with those consequences and you cool with that, then you cool with it. But I would definitely play that scenario out in my head and run it through a few different ways of how I would deal with it. And two, because we're talking about money and we're talking about income, this is how most of us take care of ourselves and our families. You have to think, well, worst case scenario, if my wages are getting garnished, what else could I do? Because maybe I need that money for mortgage, rent, groceries, whatever. Run that through a few times in your head to say, okay, well, I might have to work a second job, or whatever that might look like, and start. And so that when when you quit and maybe you default, or you can see that maybe you're getting fired for whatever reason, you can say, okay, well, I know I need to start applying for like two and three jobs, because I don't want to pay them, through them, whatever is going on in your life. They're going to garnish my wages. If you don't have wages, they're going to take any tax returns you get. Like they're coming after it. That's not every contract, but I'm just saying worst case scenario. Just know how you're going to deal with it.
I would say too, as bad as that may sound in terms of having your wages garnished, the point is you're free once because that's temporary. Once it's paid off, it's temporary, but you're mentally and physically free of the bondage that you have with this facility. And that's exactly what it feels like. That's what people feel like when they file bankruptcy. It's like they finally made the decision to file bankruptcy and just get free and start over again. That's what you got to do. So, just think mentally, it's providing some mental clarity and say, okay, you know what? I'm not tied to this anymore. I'm going to do what I need to do to make sure that I don't that I don't do this again. And that's another thing. Let that be a lesson. Let it be a lesson that I'm never going to do this again. Or if you do the same thing, you're about to go through the same thing in terms of, okay, different facility, whatever happens to be, read the fine print, whatever. But again, we don't advocate it, but if you're going to do it, because there's some circumstances which, you know what, I'm literally homeless. I'm literally don't have nowhere to go. I got to take that bonus and make it do what it do. Totally understand, totally get it, but have a exit strategy if you should so need it. Any parting words that you want to do as we wrap up this?
For this, I would definitely just say read the fine print and know the terms of your contract. And some of the contracts, exiting isn't as bad. I've seen things as minor as, oh, we won't rehire you for a year. I mean, that's pretty small. Just know what you're getting into, and just understand that when you see these large numbers, the reality is not as sexy as you think it is. And again, if you're going to do it, fine. Just the purpose of this is not us telling you not to do it. We're telling you to just be aware of what you're getting yourself into, and to educate yourself so that you understand this full process and why it's set up this way. That's really the purpose of this video. Not telling you to do it or not to do it, although we typically suggest not to. Right. But that's totally up to you. But either way, just understand what's actually happening here.
And typically they tax that money, so you're not getting 25K or whatever anyway, typically. And find out what the payback schedule is. Sometimes they don't release it to you all at once either. Some hospitals will release you the whole 25K check at the beginning. Some will release add it to your paycheck, every like a certain amount every 3 months or every quarter or whatever happens to be, every 6 months. And some places will say, okay, you've worked a year for us. We've given you a year, so you only have to pay back the second year or whatever's left. And some hospitals will say you got to pay back the entire amount no matter what. So definitely read the fine print. And like we said, just keep in mind that there's not as glamorous, as we like to say, as people think it is. So that ends this edition of Nursing Dynamics for today. We want to thank you for joining us here on our platform. Also, we want to have you go visit us on our other social media platforms, such as TikTok. And it is the same handle at Nursing Dynamics, as well as on Instagram. Follow us there. Same handle there. In addition to that, you look in the banner at the top, you will see the Amazon storefront, our Amazon storefront icon. And many have asked us from time to time about what products or what books or whatever do we recommend for NCLEX prep, for this new next gen NCLEX is coming up, for anatomy and physiology study tools, and on and on and on. What do we recommend for that? We have vetted these particular items ourselves in terms of either purchased, looked at, used, whatever it happens to be, and to know that these are good items to assist you in being successful in whatever it is that you're trying to do in terms of A&P, whether it is NCLEX, whatever it happens to be. So if you go to the icon, it's going to take you to our storefront. You will see something called Nursing Essentials, as well as other categories as well, in which you can go shop from our storefront and pick out things that you are truly, interested in, and purchase them through our storefront. If you don't mind doing so, we would greatly appreciate it. If not, that's perfectly fine, but at least it's a resource for you to know what we deem to be resourceful, useful to help you in your success in your nursing school journey, amongst other things on there, other categories for skincare, hair, things like that as well. If you want to know what products we use when it comes to our personal aspect of our self-care regimens. So we thank you for joining us today. And as always, take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.